I'm so tired of people saying that it's just a movie, it's just a comic book, it's just a TV show. No, it's not. Stories are the building blocks of our culture, of ourselves, even of our own psychology. We are a product of the stories we tell ourselves about our own past and the experiences on a daily basis, but also the stories that we choose to spend time with. What types of values, our feelings, or whatever are they promoting? What types that we like to spend our time around? They're going to shape us. They're going to shape our personality and character, and they're going to shape our perception of the world and the acts and behaviors that we put out into the world. And people don't understand that. They go, it's just a movie. It's just this. I can like and promote whatever I want. Well, of course you can, but you should pay attention to the responsibility that you have.
Consume stories responsibly.
As a member of society, as a human being, responsibility to yourself.
Consider the consequences.
You need some balance. You need some certain criteria that is going to make sure you're promoting the right kind of works, or at least have thought through the type of work that this or that story is going to do in our culture, and then make your own decision whether or not that's something you want to support.
Consume stories responsibly. Consider the consequences. Consume stories responsibly.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another office hours stream. Hopefully you guys have had a good week. Everything is going well, and you're ready for a good weekend. I know I am. I I was going to do a few things before the stream tonight. I was going to do a little bit more prep and record an analysis video actually of Monster Island. I did a review of it, of Monster Island a while ago, some years ago, when he re-released it, and I got a nice hard copy collector's edition, but I never did do the analysis of the Return to Monsters Island. So I was going to record that tonight and put that up, because he just released a campaign, Graham Nolan did, re-releasing the books through Compass Comics, and the campaign is hugely successful already, but I thought it'd be timely to go ahead and finally give my review analysis of Return to Monster Island. So that's coming. I'm probably going to record it tomorrow now at this point. But I napped. Those aftermath pre-stream naps always get me. The week takes it out of me. I need to replenish with those naps. But welcome to you folks here. At least I'm high energy. At least I'm not high energy. When is the prof ever high energy, right? At least I'm not lethargic. Let's just put it that way. But welcome to everybody. Nathaniel's Lowsball, Ghost Planet Max Inc., Andre Hernandez. Good to see everybody there. Big Al popping in to say hi. Of course, my lovely sound engraver. And Vinital Kayan, Darth Enigma, Studio Super, Samuel Proctor, channel member. Great to see you there. Won't be commenting much, at least for 10 minutes. On your way home from door dashing. Oh, nice. Hey, make that money wherever you can. Speaking of making that money, my dear sound engraver sent in the super chat for $2. Yeah, they apparently added this function. We just found out about it last night. I don't know if it's been there before then, but where you can like super chats. So I just hearted her super chat there. Kind of weird. I mean, you should be paying attention to super chats anyway, right? Well, I guess it's for you to be able to like, as I can heart it as the person whose channel it is, but you can actually go on anybody else's super chat that you kind of concur with. You can click like on it, which is a cool new function, I guess. Welcome to Fizchozo Corner. I think I've been pronouncing your name wrong. Darth Enigma says, I've been thinking about going back to college to become a historian. Are there any schools, online courses you'd recommend? Well, I can't say I'm an expert on historian, schools of history and that kind of thing. In college in general, you want to have a very clear idea of what you're wanting to do with that degree. Do you want to teach? Do you want to get a job as a historian at some sort of historical society or something like that, historical site or something like that? And with college, you just have to be so careful, because so few colleges, so few universities are even worth going to anymore these days. It's just very true. They're not going to teach you anything of value. They're just going to preach to you. They're just going to try to indoctrinate you. And that's not the case with all of them. And there's definitely some. You just have to do some research. Private universities are less likely to do that, though they still absolutely will. I worked for Kaiser University in Florida, and they were just awful. I pity anybody who comes away from Kaiser University with a degree from Kaiser, because it is a joke. and that was a private university. So private universities alone don't necessarily exclude them from that nonsense. But give it a try. Just do some research, and ultimately, when it comes to the you want to try and get a place that's agenda free, or it's actually going to teach you the content. But the onus of learning is really going to fall more on you than it has been previously, or that it should be. You should always do your best to learn, but you have to do a lot more work. You have to really kind of work to teach yourself these days, because the universities aren't going to do it. The teachers aren't going to do it, sadly. But anyway, sorry I couldn't be more help there. But congratulations on getting more into history. That's great. And if you're just wanting to learn about history in general, well, there are plenty of wonderful resources for that won't put you in debt or do all the stupid college things that does to you. But just some thoughts there. Let's see. Owen Lister said, I got Iron Man Armor Wars in the mail today. Cool. Yeah, I'd like to read some more and get some more in-depth, good classic Iron Man lore. But, just growing up a DC guy, you know how that is. Studio Super said, I would say Western entertainment industries with movies, comics, and games are having their own dark ages. Yeah, but they kind of been having that right, too. So, yeah. Owen Lister says, I've been recently practicing coloring. I've never been much of a color expert, so I'm practicing to get better at that. Yay, practice. So I've got there in the name of the stream today and on the thumbnail. The first thing I have there is the picture of Harley Quinn from the horrible Rocksteady Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League game. A number of people were asking me, I saw a number of comments saying, Prof, we really want to get your perspective on this whole Sweet Baby Inc. thing and this whole Rocksteady thing. And I do appreciate anybody wanting to hear my thoughts on anything. That's an honor. I appreciate that. But I already did a video talking about Rocksteady a few weeks ago, kind of before the whole Sweet Baby Inc. thing part of it came out. And my point of that video was that Rocksteady is the problem. Rocksteady, they once they ousted or just decided they didn't need Paul Dini for the third Arkham game, they showed their true colors in terms of they can't write. Opening my Diet Pepsi there. They can't write. They think they can write, and they had some cool ideas, but the story for Arkham Knight just plummeted. Now, the gameplay was wonderful, but the story just plummeted. And I did a whole video on that talking about it. I think it was part of a live stream that I cut out and made it its own video. And I said, this is the logical end result. Of course, they'd go on to make Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. That's that kind of, brain dead, out of touch thinking that would try and give you a game like that. And I know there's some behind the scenes thing. They wanted to do a different type of game, but Warner Bros. Like, no, you're doing this or whatever, Well, now, if you don't know, you can go and look it up. A lot of other channels have gone through and talked about the Sweet Baby Inc., this company that's involved with Rocksteady, and they're involved with a lot of new games apparently, and they're 100% agenda driven. It's just a bunch of stupid feminists in there trying to push their ideology. And like every other, feminist or SJW ideologue, they say, screw you, you dirty stinking fanboy. If you don't like it, how dare you not buy our game? Shut your mouth and get on board and just listen to us. And we're the new wave. And it doesn't matter if you won't buy our game because other people will. We've been seeing this in comics for a lot. Kelly Sue DeConnick, girls buy comics. We don't need you. Well, how did that work out for you? Because comic sales are plummeting now. The medium's just almost dying if it's not for comics are really going the way of DVDs and Blu-rays almost, where it's a point where you got sort of boutique collectors, like Criterion and whatnot, giving out, really specialized editions, but that's almost it, that's really the thing that keeps it alive. Whereas, it takes a very special kind of damaged person to still be buying and reading DC or Marvel comics. And I know that insults a lot of people, but I don't care. You deserve to be insulted. If you're still following and reading DC and Marvel comics thinking it could be saved, then you got issues. The industry's dying. And it should die. It didn't have to die. It's sad, but it's so cancerous right now. It needs to die. It's the only way to drown all the leeches, upon it. But they're doing the same thing to video games, and this Sweet Baby Inc. company is exactly the ones behind it. They're very much in line with that. Luis Sanchez says the Suicide Squad game committed financial suicide. Yeah. And that's the narrative right now, right? The narrative now that's being pushed since I made my video when all the news about the Sweet Baby Inc. thing came out. A lot of different channels, have given all the details. You can go check those out. Everybody's trying to put their little claim on the algorithm and do a Sweet Baby Inc. video. And everything they're saying is right. I think Sweet Baby Inc. deserves to be exposed, and all of the things people are saying about them is dead on. I'm like, yeah, this is a horrible crap company, 100%. But I'm seeing a disturbing change in the narrative a little bit. Not from everybody, but just overall in general, I'm seeing this disturbing change in the narrative to where now it's a little bit like poor Rocksteady. Sweet Baby Inc. came in and they don't care that they're just ending a company. They don't care about Rocksteady and all the poor people there and their jobs that they're losing and this and that. It's kind of sounding, even if they're not fully committing to this idea, the narrative's changing a little bit to where it's sounding like Rocksteady is the victim. Maybe they're not totally innocent, but they gave us some great games, and look at what evil Sweet Baby Inc. came in and did to Rocksteady. Isn't that horrible? As though Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League could have been a great game if Sweet Baby Inc. didn't have, their fingers in it. And that's just absurd. That is ridiculous. I know not everybody, talking about the news is necessarily saying that, and that's fine. That's good. But it's there. It's there. Slav, channel member for 12 months. Thank you, Slav. Says today it was announced that more people were playing Arkham Knight on Steam than they are playing Suicide Squad. That's funny. And that is funny. And it's great to see that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that kind of comparison is being made. And on one hand, it's a good comparison. Like I saw a video that showed, and it was really great. You should look this up. I'm sure you can find it elsewhere. I'm sure people have done it. But on one side of the screen, there's gameplay from Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. And on the other side of the screen, there's gameplay from Arkham Knight. And it shows, this game was made, what was Arkham Knight? Like so many, I don't know, it wasn't 10 years ago, but like 7 or so. I don't know. I forget the dates right now in my mind. But it was made years and years ago on a previous generation console. And it looks 10 times better than Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. Just the visuals, the textures, the details, the graphics, everything. Arkham Knight's 10 times better looking-wise and gameplay-wise too, I imagine, from what the things are saying, than Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. And that's good. That's a good, thing to bring out. But it does kind of play into this idea a little bit that if you haven't really played the games yourself, or you're not really fully in the know with all the history of it, you can kind of think, yeah, man, Rocksteady was just killing it, man. Right up through Arkham Knight, they were amazing. Something must have happened. Somebody must have entered that company and started to implant the cancer, and that's why we get this horrible game. And that's just not true. Arkham Knight already showed that Rocksteady decided to take a downturn in quality when it comes to the story, the handling of the characters. You can go watch my video on that. I did a whole thing about how the story, once they ousted Paul Dini and decided, meh, we can write it. We don't need to hire some comic book writer to come in here and tell us what to do. We've been doing these games long enough. We can handle the script. And you couldn't. The script was garbage. There are some really cool ideas in it, and it's not a trash game top to bottom story-wise, but it just took a weird turn, and it got the character relationships wrong. It story-wise, it just really fell flat in its face in terms of the quality that Arkham Asylum and Arkham City were. And even Arkham Origins, to a large extent, even though it was a different studio, they were working kind of heavily with Jeff Johns, from what I understand, and they were pulling a lot of things straight from the comic books, story-wise and canon-wise. And Arkham Knight just wow, what a drop in quality. And it's perfectly, even before the Sweet Baby Inc. news came out, or even before I knew anything about them, that made perfect sense to me. Oh, of course, the people that made Arkham Knight are going to follow up with a game called Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. Because Arkham Knight, remember, was the closeout of the trilogy. And that was the end of Batman's career, right? In terms of that storyline, which I think was kind of dumb. I really wanted to see what Paul Dini had as an end of that trilogy. I don't see Arkham Knight as the logical conclusion in any way to Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. And people need to realize that. The problem is a number of issues with it. Yes, the ideologues are a problem, 100%. And yes, you can read things, you can see things in Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League that is straight up there from Sweet Baby Ink. That these feminists are just they're just over there touching themselves about the fact that Harley Quinn kills Batman. Yay, let the women replace him or whatever. This nonsense. And it's not just feminism; it's all that I'm sure they think Killer Shark is some sort of stand-in for a trans representative or something. Who knows? They're so ridiculous. So you can see a lot of that nonsense. I'm sure they put in there, but the basis of the game, Rocksteady deserves blame for that already, and because it's a logical next step in the deconstruction of all of our beloved superheroes. I mean, who thought that we would accept and lovingly accept a game in which this group of villains rises up, or even if the plot makes them kind of sort of anti-hero, whatever, even if these villains rise up and just kill everybody in the universe, and even if you're trying to pull this alternate universe kind of thing on it, it doesn't work. That's been done to death, for one. It's also very uncomfortable, even when it's done like in Injustice. I mean, when those comics first came out, I didn't follow them all, but you could kind of see maybe a little merit to the sort of what if alternate universe. I don't know. It's just no fun to be in that universe. I don't know why people would glory in that kind of thing. And then Suicide Squad to pull that crap again. And everybody, you can see the character designs are disgusting. It's right up the alley of an ideologue. It's exactly what they would do. They don't want to idealize anybody. They don't want to make anything look well and attractive and pretty. They want to, change the perception of beauty, which is to say, let's make everything look butt fugly, and then pretend that that's the norm. So we don't have to like put makeup on in the mornings, But the thing that ticks me off a little bit is that everybody's talking about, did you see what they did to Batman? And look, I'm 100% outraged by that too. And there's the extenuating circumstances of the fact that it was Kevin Conroy's last time portraying the character before he passed away. And that really sucks. That it is. It's a real slap in the face of the character to get Harley Quinn to shoot him in the head there in the game and everything. And just the short-sighted ignorance / audacity, maybe, if you do realize it, how do you think fans are going to react to that? Let's take a series of 3 games with this one main character that they've spent all this time playing in the personality of this character, identifying with this character, a beloved character in culture, and then let's have a follow-up game in the same universe in which he just dies, sort of unceremoniously, whatevs. Who thought that would be well received in any way? And people are rightfully upset about it, as am I. But that's the thing that people are citing. Not enough people are talking about the basis of the game anyway, and it kind of ticks me off as a Superman fan. Now, I love Batman. Batman's great. I'm a Batman fan as well. But Superman's just he's the heart of the DC universe, and they've been deconstructing and crapping on him for ages. And so many of the normies are sort of DC fans, which is really Batman fans, are kind of like, yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, Man of Steel was actually a good modernized take on that kind of thing. And what, just trying to, excuse any of the horrible treatment that they've given to Superman or Wonder Woman, for a long time. But now that they come touching their precious Batman, oh, now we're mad, line in the sand, and it's kind of ridiculous. Yes, it's terrible what that game is trying to do to Batman, but come on, how is it shocking to you? How is it shocking to you? They've been doing this with the DC universe, Superman in particular, forever. It's these companies don't deserve their properties anymore. Warner Brothers, it's I've said this many times before, it's hard to fully comprehend the level of sheer stupidity that exists in the Warner Brothers executives' brains. The kind of idiotic things they pull the trigger on. It's just mind-boggling. and it's always been that way, as the executives come and go. It's just like, in order to work at Warner Brothers, in order to make any kind of executive calls about the DC universe, you have to be a total idiot, and you can't have any understanding of the characters whatsoever. I mean, get some consultants at the very least who understand the freaking characters, but it doesn't matter. They pull the trigger. They think they know what's best, and they know how to lose money more better than anybody else, right? So they keep doing this crap. And there's no saving these characters. There's no saving this franchise. Just let it die. Wake me up in however many years it takes for these characters to go into the public domain, if it'll actually ever happen, because this is it's just a tragedy. It's not just Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. It's not just video games. You can really look back on the tragic history of mishandling of these characters across the mediums: comics, movies, television, games. And to think that James Gunn, of all people, is going to swoop in and set it all straight is pretty short-sighted. Even if in some which way he did have a pretty iconic vision or whatever, even if he did, it wouldn't last. It wouldn't last. Give it 8 years or so, and they do some other garbage. They still got Matt Reeves making his The Batman movies and stuff. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. I wasn't even going to do a video on it because everybody else is already doing their videos on Sweet Baby Inc. And it's one of those issues where it's already getting too much attention. It's getting too much attention to the point where it's just more publicity for them. And everybody just wants a little slice of that sweet algorithm pie, though. That's the hot thing to talk about right now. So I wasn't going to do a video at all, even though people had asked me about it. I was just going to point them back to that video. But then it occurred to me that we do need to make sure that we are understanding, look, let's not get lost in this, whether intended or not, this new narrative that, Rocksteady guys, they're the victims. Sweet Baby Inc. is the bad guys. No, they're all bad guys. Rocksteady has been crapping on these characters and showing their poor understanding of them for a while, ever since right up through Arkham Knight. Even though Arkham Knight's still very playable, it still has a lot of great things in it. I'm not saying you never touch that game, it's horrible. It's just such a blatant nosedive in quality when it comes to story from the it's a horrible end to the trilogy, and it's all because they just got too big for their britches and decided we can do what Paul Dini does. No, you can't. No, you can't. Anyway. So thoughts on that, those are kind of my thoughts on that. Welcome Leia Plus Size says, I agree, like Batman, but Superman is my favorite, and it feels that like they want to kick him out of the DC, turning him into somebody he's not. And the thing is that Batman is I don't think he has to be, but he's more profitable. Ever since Tim Burton's Batman movie and the Batmania, because Batman wasn't super profitable before that, but ever since that movie came out, everything with the Batman logo on it has been just selling like crazy. Even when the movie stuck, like even when the Batman and Robin movie came out and the George Clooney and all of that, the Batman merchandise was just still, even though that it took a hit with that, but Batman is just, instantly profitable. Anything that you put the Batman logo on, it's kind of like, I don't know if is it even more so than Spider-Man now? Probably. And Superman never achieved that level of marketability, but I think he could. I think it's the mismanagement of it. I think it's the, that, he's so goody two shoes. He's that, people just don't, they want to pretend that Batman's not aspirational when he should be aspirational, but they like the darker or whatever, that kind of thing. And Warner Brothers never has understood this fact that they own this franchise. They own this property. Superman is the heart of the DC universe. As Superman goes, so goes the DC universe. And so few people in charge of any kind of storytelling at DC have ever understood that. The people in charge of the comics, the people in charge of the films, whatever, they never understood that. They just keep looking to Batman, and you really saw it with the New 52 makeover that they gave the DC Comics in 2011, where they really tried to just make over the entire DC universe in the image of Batman and make Batman himself even darker, depending on who was writing him. And it was really just ridiculous. And they still have that poor understanding of the universe, to the point where in a lot of these games, it's Batman to the forefront. And even that, we're seeing that now in the coverage of the game. It's Batman. He's the one that people are outraged about, as they should be. But what about the other characters? Samuel Proctor says, I would say there was a time when Superman was huge and more popular than Batman. Professor Geek, the gold and early Silver Age Superman was huge. My grandpa still remembers the George Reeves Superman. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like I said before, Batmania had its own little time with the 66 show. And it did. It was a big deal, but that didn't last. And it kind of because of that sort of theater of the absurd take on it, culture kind of turned away from that, especially into the 70s as cultural, interests changed and whatnot. And it wasn't until 89's Batman that it came back and it's kind of stayed, in terms of the marketability of the character. But you're right. Superman has been the big deal, in the 50s. And Superman was it, George Reeves and then Christopher Reeves Superman. That was just, yeah. And we can go back to that easily. We could easily get that back if people, I say easily, okay, maybe not so easily, because people have been deconstructing the very idea of aspirational heroism for so long in our culture that it would probably take a little bit of work. But it's not hard to portray the character right, that's for sure. It's just lazy people and what's the word? Jaded. The culture's so jaded. Yeah. Problems with that. Definitely problems with it. So, let's see. I got this crick in my shoulder here. My left shoulder's kind of bad anyway. I was sitting my drink down a second ago. I don't know if you heard it, but it slammed on the table because my shoulder just lost the ability, lost all strength, and it just slammed down. Luckily, the table was under there. It wasn't the floor. We can talk about this more if you want to, if you have questions or whatever. But the other thing that I had listed on the thumbnail there in place of any kind of natural segue was that picture of physical media again, the DVD and the DVD player. I just had a follow-up comment, something that, because I talked about that in my first episode of the Iconicast podcast. I talked about how, physical media is important. I'm right there with everybody. We need physical media. But I see this kind of unquestioned privileging of the highest quality specs and technology, which I think is silly. I don't think it's silly at all that people prefer that. If you prefer the clearest picture, if you automatically prefer Blu-ray to DVD and 4K to Blu-ray, and hey, that's fine. As I said multiple times in that podcast, and I cut it out as its own video too, where a lot more people saw it. Hey, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what you should prefer and what you should collect. I said you collect what makes you happy, and if it's the specs, if it's the clearest picture, go for it. But what I speak out against is this sort of unquestioned assumption that is the highest quality, that okay, it's fine if you want to collect DVDs, if you want to be kind of quirky, and watch some older, less quality pictures, then okay, you can do that, whatever, but clearly, it's just a fact that Blu-ray is better than DVD and 4K is better than Blu-ray. And I want to absolutely speak against even that. Again, collect what you like, do what you like, watch what you like. But I think a lot of people don't understand, are somehow just not realizing that film is a medium, whether film or digital or whatever. When they're making a movie, and maybe I think it's a different beast in sort of modern day movies. Like I gave as an example in that story, I said, if you're a fan of Avatar movies, I said, I can definitely see if you really love the Avatar movies and you're going to buy the physical media to own at home, I can certainly see wanting to have the highest specs to watch that on, because that's what those films have been shot for, right? People talk about, James Cameron really trying to get the clearest picture and the most amazing, visuals and all of that. Something like that, sure. But I think people need to realize that when the director's shooting a film, when the cameraman's there, when the cinematographer's there, and they're shooting the film, their goal is not to capture on film or digital even exactly what they see with their eyes, right? movies are not made to emulate perfect 2020 vision. People brought up how the Lord of the Rings, some people really like the 4K, enhanced editions or whatever visually of Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, and that was shot on film. And I would never even want to remotely. I've seen the imaging of the Lord of the Rings on 4K, and I wouldn't even want to touch that. I would never sit down and watch Lord of the Rings 4K, because that is not what Peter Jackson wanted you to see when he shot that movie, because the technology didn't even exist then. I mean, we're talking about Lord of the Rings in the early 2000s here. Go back even beyond that, before that, watching some 90s films or whatever. I think it's absurd to think that, even James Cameron, we're still talking about him when he was shooting the Terminator. He was not his real true desire was for you to see that in 4K crystal clarity. No, he was shooting a film. He was shooting it on film. That's a medium. It takes on a certain look. It takes on a certain grain. They put filters. Cinematographers work with the lighting. They want you to see it in a certain level of clarity, a certain level of tint, a certain level of focus, a certain level of lighting. And when 4K adjustments come in and they just wonk up the colors and they do it, and there's this sort of unquestioned assumption that that's better, that's really what the director wanted you to see. No, it's not. If that's what you prefer, then you might as well be one of those people that gets the colorized versions of old black and white movies, because that's the same thing. People say, well, I don't care what the director wanted me to see. I want to see a clear picture. Well, then, yeah, okay. You might as well just colorize those black and white movies and watch that as well, because, that's the more modernized take or look or whatever. And that's not true. I like stories. I like the art of filmmaking. I like the art of storytelling through the medium of film, or even digital, when things are shot in digital. But even in digital, it's a medium. The directors work with cinematographers, they work with editors, they work with their cameramen, they work with all the technical people to make their vision of what they want you to see come alive. And once that's out there, then that's out there. And I think I know that 4K translations are not all the same. I know some are good, some are bad, some focus more on this, some focus more on that. So I'm not trying to put every 4K translation or even Blu-ray translation of an old movie all in the same bucket. I'm just saying that they're not automatically better. They're not automatically clear. They're not automatically closer to what the director had in mind, especially with the older films. And that's some of the things that, a lot of people saw that video and they were very cool about it. A lot of people who even just disagree with me, who said, I don't know, Prof, I really like the clear. I like the 4K Blu-ray. Hey, but you know what? You do you, and that's great. And that's cool. That's all I was saying too. I was like, hey, you collect and watch what you want to watch. That's great. Collect what makes you happy. That's the whole point of physical media. It's yours, so make sure that you're happy with it. But I was just kind of going against that idea where it's just sort of a, oh, that's cute. You have DVDs. That's adorable. I have, that kind of thing. But I did get some people who were like, that's ridiculous. So it's almost like you're insulting their religion or something, if you talk about how, no, the 4K, the Blu-rays is not automatically 100% unquestioningly better. If you prefer it, great, but that doesn't make it any closer automatically to what the directors had in mind, or wanted you to see, Yeah, I agree. Thank you, my dear Sound Engraver, for the $2 super chat there. It should look like the time in which it was made. That's very true. I mean, I'm not going to say that there aren't instances like even in that case. I'm trying to think an example. Like maybe when James Cameron made the first Avatar movie, maybe he would have wanted it to look even clearer than it was or whatever, but he didn't. It didn't, and that's the way it looked when it came out on screen. And that's what art. That's the art. It's kind of like think about another art form. Take a painter makes a painting, a beautiful painting, and let's say that somebody 20 years down the road takes that painting and takes some photographs of it and sharpens the edges and puts some more contrast in, because the painter didn't have all these pigments available to him back then, so we're just perfecting it, we're just making it even better. Well, no, it's art. It wasn't a photograph. Even photographs are art, but it wasn't a photograph that was designed to capture the full level of realism of the moment. it's art. It's through an artistic lens, and you don't just brush that up with technology just because the technology is available. So anyway, that's just one thing that I thought about that I maybe I didn't totally fully articulate in that video, was that in addition to people who would automatically look down on somebody that collects Blu-ray or DVDs, and that's not everybody. Some high-end collectors, some 4K collectors are fine with it, whatever. They just like their 4K, and that's fine. But I just also wanted to get away from this ridiculous idea that it's automatic. Like, truly, I mean, you can like DVDs if you want, but we know what's better. That's not necessarily true. Slav says, I disagree to some extent to this argument, but I can't explain in a chat. Well, try it, Slav. I mean, you're a channel member, so I'm gonna definitely try and privilege your comments when I see them down there. But just take into the point, like I said too, that I fully respect individuals' taste or whatever. That's fine. Samuel Proctor says, again, I disagree, Professor Geek. These 4K scans are trying to replicate what they looked like when they first came out. 35 millimeter film grains are more microscopic than even 4K. All right, so here's the thing. Maybe in some cases you're right, okay? If it's an older film and the film has degraded to a certain degree or whatever, I mean, I fully agree with. I mean, I fully understand what you're saying, Samuel Proctor. I know that in a lot of cases, a 4K treatment can very much try to restore what was lost in some which way. Totally understand that, and agree with it. But you can't say that across the board, because if X is the only, if X level technology is all that's available to them when they're shooting the movie, then that's the highest quality that they can expect you to see the movie in, is X level. And if a DVD perfectly translates X level that it was shot in, there's no reason in my mind to try to shoot it up to Y and Z level when X level technology is all that it was shot in or ever meant to be seen in. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing the idea of this technology altogether, because I mean, as you guys say, yeah, there are plenty of examples in which they do really great work. They do restore a lot of things that were lost, or they were, and that's wonderful. I do agree with that. But like for Lord of the Rings, for example, they had colorists working on the film. Sound Engraver talks about this. You used to watch the special features ad nauseum on those movies. And yeah, I mean, we're talking 2000s. I can't see so much being lost between the shooting of the movie and the translation to DVD or even Blu-ray. I haven't watched them in Blu-ray myself. I'd like to see a Blu-ray edition next to my DVD edition. But DVD, to my eye, looks exactly like I saw it in the theater. And that's the highest level of quality I ever need to see those movies in. This is me personally. Samuel Proctor says, I would agree with your recoloring argument when it comes to artificial upscaling of previous DVD and Blu-ray scans and calling it 4K. Yeah, so maybe that's it. Maybe if you really disagree with what I said, maybe try to understand that I'm not talking across the board. Even if we still do disagree on a couple little things, like Samuel Proctor points out, I think there's a lot of common ground there. And I'm not saying, again, that Blu-ray or 4K is automatically evil by any means. One of these days, I will have a 4K TV. As I said in that video, I said when it gets to the point that there are like 3 other levels of technology better than 4K, by that time, I'll probably have a 4K TV because, cost-wise and stuff like that. So at some point I'll have it, but I'll still want to watch, I still want to keep the classic media as well. The other thing I had on the thumbnail there, and we can come back to any of these topics. I'm just trying to make sure that I get through everything that I had intended to get through, especially in the time of these office hour streams. The other thing that I had on there is about story, and you might not really understood what it was supposed to be on the thumbnail because it's just a guy telling a story to a bunch of kids. But a few live streams ago, maybe it was even last week, I don't remember, I talked about where stories come from, and I even cut it out as its own video, and I labeled that part 1. And you can go check that out, or just do a but as a quick recap, I was talking about how the fact that we are 100% built on stories, our psychology, it's the human experience is very much story, and I really delved a lot into that. And I'd like to bridge the gap a little bit now as to why that's important to us if we want to be writers, if we want to tell stories through whatever medium, prose, comics, film, whatever, or if we just want to better understand stories and have a better understanding of why we really are drawn to some stories, why some stories kind of fall flat for us, that kind of thing. I think we need to delve a little bit farther into the topic, and I just didn't want to leave it out there as part 1 and leave it hanging, So let me just say a few more words about that, and then we can talk more about physical media or the Rocksteady or whatever as we go out. But I'm seeing a lot of people go, Owen Lister says some Blu-rays are good in Private Eye and Retro. I like Blu-ray. Hey, look, I don't dislike Blu-ray. I just upgraded. I'll show you, actually. I talked about it in the podcast that I was upgrading my Underworld collection to Blu-ray. They've been released in 4K now, but I upgraded this to I don't know, I'm jumping over topics, but I just want to finish this out because I want to make sure the chat doesn't think I'm just saying 4K is dumb, Blu-ray is stupid. No. I have some Blu-ray stuff. I don't own a 4K TV, so I don't have that. And I'll look at your comment there in a second, Slav, because I appreciate you writing out more of your thoughts there. But yeah, I just got this nice Steelbook Blu-ray collection of all 4 Underworld movies. Now, I have a very nice collector's edition of the first Underworld movie on DVD, and it has the comic, like the Underworld comic is in there. It's in the packaging. It's a really nice, big collector's edition DVD package. Of course, I'm going to keep that. And I have no problem watching it on DVD, but I'm anxious to see it on Blu-ray to see, any kind of changes or whatever, So again, I'm not anti-Blu-ray. I'm just this idea that it's automatically better no matter what in every case, But Slav says Samuel's doing a good job explaining it, but he will say that when you get a 4K TV, make sure to turn off motion blurring and 60 FPS when film should be at 24 FPS. So yeah, that's good to know. Everything you just said right there, those are specs that fly right over my head. But I appreciate that thought. Yeah, if I ever get a 4K TVD, when I ever get a 4K TV down the road, might be 10 years from now, I will have to know that. I will have to learn some little spec things like that. And that's something good to know for people who might have 4K TVs and they're wondering, what's the difference or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure you got to know the technology and know what the settings to put it on and everything. So I appreciate you saying that. Samuel Proctor said, on another topic, Professor Geek, happy Chinese New Year. This year is the year of the dragon. So any thoughts on doing videos about dragons and mythology? I had no idea it was Chinese New Year, and I had no idea that it was the year of the dragon. But dragons are always fun to talk about in terms of mythology and the archetypes they are. So remind me about that. I'm going to go back to the story thing here in a second because I'm kind of all over the place, I know. But I'm going to go back to the story thing here in a second. But remind me about dragons. We can definitely talk about some dragon stuff. I'm, still getting through Grimm, and I love the idea of the Daemon Fures, the dragon type Grimm, the Vessin that come about. Yeah, Studio Super. PS2. That was one of the reasons why the PS2 console was such a hit back in the day, because you could spend almost the same amount of money on a PS2 and just get a DVD player, or you could get a PS2 that plays DVDs and video games and so forth. And then the PS3 upgraded to being a Blu-ray player. PS4 didn't really have any kind of upgrade, but PS5 coming about. That's the other thing. Just maybe to end this physical media conversation on something that I think we can all agree on. Hopefully we can all agree on it, is that there's been a lot of speculation that new game consoles, and Xbox, I think, is kind of pushing the industry, or the what's the word? I don't know what I'm looking for. The market, I guess, into this field. But the next consoles, it's not going to be too long before the consoles won't even accept physical media anymore. They won't even accept physical games anymore. Maybe that'll be a holdover that kind of lasts for a little while, but it'll almost be sort of an atavistic add-on, because everything's going to 100% digital, download, and the physical. Xbox One, right? I don't even think you can. They got a lot of flack for this. I don't know if they changed it, because I just always have mine hooked to Wi-Fi anyway that runs throughout my house. But I know when Xbox One first came out, maybe it's still like this. You can't play a game on it if you don't have Wi-Fi connectivity. which is really crappy. You know, if the internet goes out at my place, I still want to, and I have power still, I still want to be able to play some video games, you know? So yeah. Slav says, do you sail the 7 seas for comics? That is how most young people experience comics now. Trades and new comics are too expensive. I do both. No, I don't, but I know that's available and out there. I don't really know how to do it so much. Plus, I just I don't have no problem with people reading a digital comic. That's fine. For me, I'm just old school. I like to hold it in my hands, you know. I have read digital comics if it's the only way I can see something or read it, you know. But I like the hard copy experience myself. But yeah. Yeah, the digital market, you will own nothing and be happy, Lenora says. I mean, that's the thing. That's they can control. There's a market level and an industry level thing to this on the one hand, but then the ideologues love it because they can control more of what you see and what you watch. They can make it available to you. They can make it not available to you. If they suddenly decide that this movie that you was watching 10 years ago is now problematic, they can just take its availability away from you. Whereas if you have the physical media, they can't touch it. They can't go in and alter a scene. They can't put a stupid warning sign in front of the movie saying this movie has some problematic blah blah blah. They did that to the Aristocats, for crying out loud. The Aristocats. What problematic issues? These are cats. These are anthropomorphic cats. Shut up. You know, but that's Disney, you know, that's the ideologue. So yeah, if you're totally solely reliant on digital or streaming or whatever, then that's the case. They have control over what you watch, how you watch it, and so forth. So at least we can all agree on that in terms to physical media. Okay, let me get this out about the story here before time runs out, my energy runs out. So if it's the basis of humanity, one thing to realize as storytellers, or as just people who appreciate story, this is just kind of another building block on this topic, is that it's a basic human need to tell your story. We want to feel like we're heard. We want to feel like our stories matter, and we're telling our stories, and people appreciate and respect our stories. Now, what I mean by stories in that isn't necessarily my life story. Okay. Stories in the extent that maybe your opinions on things. You know, people have an innate need as human beings to be heard, to be validated in some which way, whether that's experiences they've gone through or whether it's opinions on a matter. And technology today, social media has made it to where, you know, it's ironic that it's called social media, because on the one hand, it's great. It can bring people together. It can put people in a lot more social interactions. All right. As the man who married the woman he met on social media, I have no place whatsoever to stand up and say social media is the problem. It's putting people apart. Okay. Obviously not. Right. But it is a hindrance to a lot of people's social skills, especially generations that grow up on it. The more that's happening. And you see it a lot just in, I saw a bunch of hearts come up in the chat, so I know that's my dear sound engraver over there. You see it a lot in platforms like YouTube or like blogs or like different things, in which you can make a video and say, I like cheeseburgers. Cheeseburgers are great. And then people come out of the woodworks. Cheeseburger, what an idiot you are. Cheeseburgers suck. Oh my gosh, you have horrible taste. Cheeseburgers are terrible. You know? And then other people will come by and say, I didn't realize you were such a soulless, immoral person. Cheeseburgers, that's death to cows. Oh my gosh, they have families. How dare you? You know, and all these people assuming that their opinion matters to you and assuming that somebody else would want to hear their opinion. And, you know, to some degree, that's kind of the nature of the platform. It's the nature of YouTube, social media, and so forth. I mean, you do these videos, and if you enable comments, then you're welcoming comments on some level. And some YouTubers, here's while we're talking about YouTubers, some YouTubers will say, hey, that's my thoughts on the thing, but hey, you tell me what you think. You know, I want to hear your thoughts in the chat below. You know, they'll say that because it helps the video, it helps the algorithm and all of that. I don't say that because I'm not a very social person. not because I don't care about what you have to say. I do read some of the comments, and I read all the comments that come through, and I enjoy some of them. But I'm not wanting to engage in a conversation every time I make a video, right? I don't have that kind of social energy. And a lot of people who don't have very good social skills, I've said this before, the kind of people who would hear you talking about, cheeseburgers at a party, just to, keep with our example, and would run up to you and say, I can't believe you eat cheeseburgers, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you were at a party, you would say, screw you, bro, and turn around and just not listen to them, or you would get out of that way somewhere. You would either kick them out or leave or whatever. You wouldn't sit there and remain in discourse ability place, the discourse zone with that person. If they're jerks, if they have no social skills, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't stay there. But in social media, unless you block somebody, you can't do that. You put out a video, it's like you're sitting down at a table for conversation, and anybody in the world can come up to you and talk. And you see that need to be heard, that need for validation. And some people, if they're a little used to not being heard, if they don't have the great social skills and they're used to people blocking them here and there or whatever, man, they get livid over it, because there's that basic human need to tell your story. Now, if you're a writer, you take that to effect with your characters. It doesn't mean that everybody wants to tell you their life story all the time. And sometimes the story, their story they want to tell you is false. They've doctored it up a little bit, and that's their story because that's how they want to be perceived as and whatnot. It's kind of understanding the psychology of your characters. But we also, and this is what I'll close this little topic out with. It's something I think about a lot, and I'm always kind of adding to it. But I'll close it out with this, this topic anyway. And then I did get a super chat there that I definitely want to take a look at. But we're also living in a place today where the market and the technology exists for anybody to be able to write a story, whatever medium that's in, prose, comic, even film. I mean, we got the ability to edit film now is much easier, or movies. I shouldn't say film, but that kind of thing. It's storytelling tools are way more ubiquitous, and they're in way more of the masses' hands than they've ever been before. And the tools not only to tell those stories, but to get those stories out, to distribute them, to the world. It's just very easy to do. You can write a story tonight. If you've never written a story before, you can write a story tonight and get it published some which way on the internet, whether it's just on a blog or doing it on-demand publishing or something like that. You can do that. You can get it out there. And everybody has that need to tell stories. So a lot of people who are so inclined maybe want to be writers, maybe want to be storytellers. The temptation and the danger is that they throw their stories out there before their stories are ready to be seen. I think this is the case with any kind of art form, whether you're an artist, a musician, or whatever, but certainly a storyteller. So many stories are coming out now, and they're hitting readers' hands before that writer is really ready to have their work hit readers' hands in any kind of, mass way. I mean, sure, you get readers and editors to look at your, work and get feedback and, workshopping circles and so forth, of course, but it's a problem because it brings down the overall quality level of stories that are out there. But I think one thing it's detrimental to as well is you take, Sam, who's a writer. No, Sam, I shouldn't use Sam because I got Samuel Proctor in the chat. I'm trying to think of just a random name, sure, a generic character, an example. Let's say that person A. Okay, person A is a writer, and they really want to put this story out, and they write this story. And they feel like they're ready. They're good enough. So they throw this, they self-publish this novel. Let's say person A self-publishes a novel and they put it on Amazon or whatever. And then let's say 10 years go by and they've really been working and honing their craft. And they realize how embarrassed they are by that novel that they put out. And it's still available because it's on the internet. People can go find it anywhere. And if they had held on to it a little while, if they had kept it in the workshopping zone, then it could have been something really special. They could have really fixed it and worked at it, and they wouldn't have that initial first impression for readers. They wouldn't have that slight to their reputation as a writer or whatever. And I've known people, not this particular situation, but I've known people in this instance who decided not to put their stories out anymore, decided not to publish because they were so kind of embarrassed, or they felt they kind of just ruined their social platforming reputation or whatever with some stuff they'd done earlier. And I think is as horrible as a lot of the gatekeeping of the publishing industry has been in the past, and I'm glad that doesn't exist. I'm glad that we can have more freedom to get our stuff out. As I said before, it did serve a purpose in quality control, which was good for the readers, but also good for the writers who maybe just needed to spend a little more time cooking before they really got their stuff out there and to be seen. Doesn't mean you're a bad writer, just maybe means you need a little more time, And that's the importance of the editor, the importance of readers, the importance of workshops, the importance of the editor is so vital. And in a world today where everybody's wanting to do their own story and drum up interest in it, it's vital to use those editors. So that's not really completing my thoughts on the story, but it's kind of that's all I want to say about it here anyway. Because this office hours has been some random topics kind of smushed together. Sound Engraver says YouTube is my only social media. Probably not the best thing for a music business. Oh well, yeah. There's that thing. If you're trying to market yourself, then more social media platforms equal more possible, clientele and so forth, customers and whatnot. So yeah, there's that. It's back in the day, the artist existed, and then there were marketers and there were publicists, and they were the ones that did all this for you. But now, if you're an artist, and artist, I mean, writer, musician, artist, or whatever, you have to do all that. You have to be your own publicist. You have to do, and you can kind of see the industry where it changed. It was a little bit more and more growing to that. I know when I was getting my MFA in writing, they were telling us, as we were about to, graduate, the industry's changed a bit where you're going to have to really get out there and do a lot more marketing of your own work. Now it's to the point where, I mean, who has the money to hire a marketing firm? You got to do every bit of it now today, which is daunting. Especially if you're a personality like myself that doesn't really do marketing, that isn't out there coordinating and social, know-how and whatnot. I want to be in the creative bubble, and I'll just hand you the work, and then you can go make sure it's everywhere or whatever, and that doesn't exist anymore. R. Rodriguez, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Sorry, it took me a while to get to it here, but you said, how do you revisit a story without ruining what you've already made? Example, writing a sequel where the hero's story doesn't match audience expectations. This is a good topic. This is a really good topic. Let me spend the last few moments we have here on it, and then I'll wrap things up here. But I actually have some experience with this kind of thing. Not necessarily the scenario you're talking about, writing a sequel where the hero's story doesn't match the audience expectations. In that instance, I mean, audience expectations, if you've written a novel and it was very well received and the public loved it and they expect a certain thing coming next, that is a gamble. If you want to subvert that, I mean, if the original trajectory for that character or that story that you had in mind all the time is contrary to what people are now expecting, it's not that it can't work. If you're very much being true to the work that you wrote and to the themes that you'd already laid down and to the story that you'd already developed in that first part, then by all means be true to yourself as a writer. Okay. But also understand that story in terms of cultural mythology, and don't think you're unable to reach that level just as a writer, self-publishing or something like that, if that's the case, because you very much are. A lot of these stories started like that. Story in that extent is just as much the audience's as it is yours. And it's not the worst thing in the world to listen to some audience feedback and to try to give them what they want, as long as it doesn't go against your integrity as a storyteller and what you truly imagine for that. The example I'll give you is that I have a Sound Engraver's read a lot of it, a fantasy novel. I've talked about it before. At one point, I thought I was going to do a comic version. It's just going to be prose now. But The Fall of Mithrisis, it's called. And I actually started writing this novel probably over 10 years ago. And I didn't try to put this in there, but kind of naturally what came into the novel, there's some religions and whatnot in this fantasy realm. And, I grew up Protestant. I grew up with a very, very critical and not a very favorable view of Catholicism. And some of that kind of was just sort of innately worked into the story. And then, so many years later, lo and behold, I convert to Catholicism and I'm a Catholic now. And I came back to that story because I'm still very proud of the draft. I'm still very proud of what's in it. And now I'm thinking, okay, wait, I don't want to alter the story inorganically and make it something it was never intended to be. But, morally, I can't sit here and write an anti-Catholic novel as a Catholic who loves my religion, So I had to really do a lot of work on that and really delve into what was the real nuts and bolts of what I was trying to say. Okay, so just coming from my perspective, if you don't like Catholicism, fine. I'm just trying to say it from my perspective here. What is it that I really didn't like about religions or man-made religions or institutions or whatever? And how did I misunderstand that about Catholicism in a way that I understand it differently now? And I was able to really take it apart with some surgical precision and go in and make whatever changes needed to be made in a way that still 100% preserved the intent and the themes that were already there. Because you can tell a story, when someone writes it a certain way, then they come to it later and try and finish it, or they do a sequel and suddenly they feel differently about the whole thing or whatever. You can tell, and it hurts the story overall. So I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, or if that touches on. I hope that's useful to you. Yeah, that's as much as I can tell you. Just reading that one little question there, but I appreciate the super chat and I do appreciate the question. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here, but let me just see a couple comments or whatever to close out on. Studio Super said, there are those that think there's no such thing as a bad concept, bad execution. Anyone who thinks like this thinks they can make a concept like a video game, killing puppies, appealing. Yeah, I mean, there's that, every story is appealing to somebody and there's no such thing as bad art because it's all subjective. No, it's not, or it's all objective. They would say, no, it's not. Or I'm sorry, they would say it's subjective. It is objective. Okay. Art is a craft and there's a quality to it that is objective. Appealing to someone's taste, that can be very subjective, but yeah. Owen Lister constantly rereading your Western. I know you talk a lot, Owen Lister, ever since I've known you, ever since you become on my screens, you've been talking about how you revising and rewriting and doing your stuff there. Andre Hernandez says, if the prof can find a girlfriend online, then so can I. Hey, it's true. I am so not social. Sound Engraver will tell you, I don't go out. But lo and behold, I met a woman who's just as much of a homebody as I am, and it works out just fine. Samuel Proctor said, I have always had a strong writing block when writing on digital, but with the typewriter, there starts to be a rhythm and a momentum to writing. It also made the story just pull me out. Yeah, Eldridge Fan was saying something about that in an earlier stream. Yeah, there you are, Eldridge Fan. How it's easier for you to write sort of, handwriting or something. And that just depends on what your flow is as a writer. So yeah, definitely do that. Oh, thank you, Rodriguez. You perfectly understood my question. Good. I'm glad that hopefully that was somewhat helpful to you or whatever. Okay, good. Remember the dragons. Yes, I will remember the dragons. I will. Yeah, we can talk more about dragons. I'd like to talk more about some archetypes and delve a little bit more, going out into some other fields like that. Imaginative Hobbyist says, not the greatest film in the world, but I do recommend checking out Argyle. Very fun movie, pretty creative and clever at times. I've never heard of that. The name. Oh, is that a recent one? I think I might have seen Big Al did a review of it or something. If that's the one I'm thinking of, I'm not sure. Eldridge Fan says, been listening to the unabridged Courtship of Princess Leia audio for Valentine's Day. Got mixed feelings. Han is acting like an idiot. not lost his head for love. He's just being dumb. Yeah, well, Han's not above that. I'd have to go pick that up, the unabridged audio. I read the novel way back in the day. Pretty sure I finished it. There were a couple EU novels that I started to read and then thought, oh, wait, I want to read this thing first, so I kind of abandoned them until later, but I need to go back and check that out. And wrapping things up tonight with a $5 super chat from Andre Hernandez. Thank you, sir. So this question is related to Disney adapting fairy tales. Thoughts on the Pocahontas movie since it's based on a real-life person? Is it disrespectful? Oh, the Disney Pocahontas? Not at all. Not even remotely at all. No. Mulan is based on stories of a real person. I mean, Pocahontas is American mythology. It's very good and wonderful, and it should be encouraged to learn the real history of the real people, Pocahontas, Powhatan, Captain John Smith, and so forth. You really should know, or at least be able to parse out from mythology the real truth of history from it, sure. But the mythology of Pocahontas is every bit as important as the true history. She's that story is quintessential. I love going to historic Jamestown and Williamsburg and Sound Engraver, and I went there for our honeymoon actually. And I've done videos on it before. And you go to Jamestown and there's that image, that statue of Pocahontas with arms outstretched, almost like a Virgin Mary type character, welcoming to the land or whatever. And it's sort of personification of her as the innocence of the untapped wilderness of the Americas and whatnot. And I'd spend another whole hour talking about the importance of the mythology that's developed about her and Captain John Smith and so forth. We should never just accept the mythology as though it were the history. It's always good to know the history and know the difference between the two. But I believe that the mythology is 100% worthy and of its own space to breathe and telling. And I think Disney did a great job with that. They did a wonderful Disneyfication, and I say that with all respect because Disney was wonderful back then. Of that, yeah, I loved the Disney's Pocahontas. I don't think it was problematic at all. Of course, everybody today would about it, as they did back then too, which was ridiculous. But anyway. All right, folks. Well, I am going to pop off here because I am a bit run down. But thank you for hanging out. I definitely appreciated hanging out with you guys. And Aos and Mulan is a poem. Yeah, a ballad or poem. Yeah, but it was supposedly about somebody real. I think, even though it was certainly embellished quite a bit. So yeah, that's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Tomorrow I'll have I'll record it tomorrow. It might be Monday before I publish it. My analysis of Monster Island and Return to Monster Island from Graham Nolan. This is my nice hard copy edition that I got from a previous campaign when it was with Ominous Press. But you can go check out his Compass Comics campaign right now. It's going to be part of his universe that he's building now with Joe Frankenstein, Ghost of Metacumbe Key, and so forth. So it's definitely worth checking out. I just did release my revisiting of Cyberfrog Blood Honey. Really went in depth with Blood Honey and the Ash Can that came out with that campaign, working on my analysis reviews of Wrecked Planet. And I think Numb is the short story that came out with that too. So I'm working on those, but I'm going to keep doing that. I'm waiting on my copy of Thomas Valiant to come from RJ in the Fourth Age. I'm very excited to do a good analysis video of that. I'm going to be doing a lot more of those really in-depth literary analysis videos of these works, because when they're good, I think they're worthy of that. And if they're not good, then they're still worthy of being shown what missed the mark here and there in terms of a literary analysis. So that's more to come. Stay tuned for that. And until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the true blue hero stories you love. Thanks for watching, guys.